Hey everybody, welcome to Astrology, the Cosmic Mirror with Moses Siregar. This is my very first video. I hope you like it. Today is Tuesday, September 12th, 2017, and there are some really cool, exciting things happening in the heavens right now. I'm excited to talk to you guys about that. I'm obviously doing my first video here, so I should probably introduce myself a little bit too. I'm walking around. This is just kind of down the way from my house here in Prescott, Arizona. So just hiking and enjoying Mother Nature out here. I've been an astrologer for 23 years. That's what I do for a living. It's my full-time thing. And I do Western astrology and I do Vedic astrology. So that's really neat. I think it's really valuable to look at both traditions. And my specialty really is with locational astrology or astrocartography. So basically I help people find their best places on Earth. That's mostly what I do for a living. If someone's thinking about moving, I help them maybe find a better spot where they can achieve more of their goals and so on. So that's a little bit about me, and I figured I'd say a little bit about astrology too, since this is my first video. So why am I talking about astrology? Why is this grown man talking about astrology? So I grew up, my mom was into astrology, and I grew up thinking she was mostly nuts for being into it. Even though she'd had it, around me, from the time I was little. So I was certainly like seeded with it in some ways. But one night when I was a teenager, told me some stuff about my chart, and I thought, how do you know that, And it made me curious. So I started to study it for myself. And I checked out all the charts of my friends and my family, and next thing I know, I'm a grown man talking about astrology on YouTube, which I would not have expected at one point. But astrology really is amazing. I think that this whole universe is so alive. There's a vibration or consciousness, in everything. And what I have found by digging into all of this is that everything is interconnected, right? Which is, astrology is just one way of seeing that. But it's a really cool, really profound way of seeing that. You can see that every individual, right? And in fact, every enterprise that begins on Earth. So whether it's a wedding, right? A marriage, whether it's a business, even a country, everything has this moment in time. And it begins at a place in time. And everything is connected to this clock that is always moving, And there are an infinite number of clocks, therefore, that are moving all at the same time. And as they move, every life is correlated to the movements of those planets, the sun and the moon. That's how this works. So it's one of these things that really just opened and blew my mind to see how interconnected everything is. And when you do this for a living, you see so much of that. You see it happening so profoundly for everyone all the time. And you just see things you just would not believe until you go really deep into that sort of rabbit hole. So anyway, a little bit about astrology. Some of you might be wondering how this meshes with your beliefs. Maybe you're a Christian, and what about that? So here's what I would say. Astrology is really a very scientific thing. You observe the movements of the planets and some of the other bodies, and you find out if it's correlated with events for us on Earth. If it is, something set that in motion. Something causes that to happen. As above, so below is the old saying. And that's really how it is. That's really how I look at it. That there is this cosmos-sized mirror between us and the cosmos. Now, we're very, very, very tiny in the big scheme of things, and yet we're apparently big and important enough that even as, planets are moving around our solar system, it actually has some connection to what we're doing in our little lives. Now, on the one hand, that seems absurd. On the other hand, when you observe it, you find that it's true. And finding that it is true, which is what I have experienced, then I have to say, well, God must have made that. You know, the creator, the great mystery, it's responsible for that. So that's how I look at it. So let's talk a little bit about the crazy stuff going on before we get into the good stuff. A lot of the world is on fire or underwater, and there's a lot of chaos and a lot of people suffering. So, first of all, let's remember to feel love and compassion and to take effort, action, to help those who are in need. You know, astrology can help you see things, make sense of things, see the correlations between things. But if it doesn't get us out of our head into our heart, then it's failing us. So, always a good thing to remember, especially when something terrible happens. So we recently had a couple of eclipses. You know, that's not so unusual, but the second one, the solar eclipse, which got a lot of press, it was conjunct the star Regulus, and some dubbed it the Great American Eclipse because the eclipse path went across the continental U.S. pretty much. What happened last Monday was that the planet Mercury stood still. And as it made its station and turned direct, it was at the same degree where the eclipse happened. This is significant because Mercury is on one element of its faces, you know, one side of its face is a great trickster. And it shows up in some of the worst moments of chaos that we experience on Earth. You can find it in most really terrible events. You'll see Mercury at a significant point in his cycle with those events. I remember going back to 9/11 and Katrina and Sandy and all sorts of things. And shows up so consistently in those places. So this eclipse, and an eclipse can be a kind of an intense omen. You know, I mean, think of the ancient people seeing the sun or moon being swallowed by this, you know, serpent in the sky. It's something that brings about hysteria and fear. And sometimes it is correlated with actual moments. I mean, an eclipse is a seeded potential. And we see that, like with Mercury, there was this celestial indication that what's being seeded is a big deal because the trickster is right there with it. And when Hurricane Harvey hit, the day it made landfall was the day that Saturn turned direct. You know, Saturn is considered a great bringer of karma. You know, he delivers a lot of what we have sown. That happened on Donald Trump's moon, so it was connected to the U.S. through the president's chart on the one hand. And, you know, I would say that some of our denial and some of our poor planning and some of our denial of what's going on with climate is responsible, right? We know that storms are more intense because of climate change. And so we see some of the results of that come in with Harvey. All right. So anyway, a little bit about that. But I feel like there's a really cool turning point today because of some events going on with Jupiter. Now Jupiter, yay Jupiter, he's our Santa Claus in the sky, right? He's known as our great benefic. So he's more likely to show up in ways that show some kind of generosity, some kind of luck, good luck, right? Some sort of feeling of the universe is watching out for you and you're not alone and abandoned, right? We need Jupiter in our lives. Well, he's doing a couple interesting things right now. One of them is that he is currently in the sky in the same position as the star Spica. In India, they call Spica Chitra, and it's considered by astrologers on both sides to be a very, very auspicious star. Arguably, and probably most often considered the most auspicious star, just as Jupiter is generally considered the most benevolent planet. So hey, that's a pretty nice combination, right? We see Spica, if you find it in the heavens, go to the constellation of Virgo, not the sign, but the constellation Virgo, and the maiden is holding an ear of wheat, and Spica, or Chitra, is there in that wheat. It is the wheat, basically. So there is a connection with harvest, with abundance, and that can be material. It can also be very spiritually expansive, intuitively Spica has this kind of sweet disposition to it, and this beauty about it. And so we have a very materially and spiritually abundant Jupiter with very materially and spiritually abundant Spica. So it's a great moment. It's a great timing, a piece for timing. So in astrology, that's a lot of what we're doing. We're trying to get good timing. You know, it's arguably a study of the qualitative dimensions of time. What is the quality of this time? Now that's pretty profound, right? Because imagine a weather report for life. So you wouldn't plan your wedding on a day when you knew a hurricane was going to hit the city. Well, astrology hopefully allows us to do that same kind of thing. Plan out better times for things and avoid worse times for things. And that's what we're trying to do. So right now says, well, it could say a lot of good things, but for example, what could you set in motion today? Just to show I'm walking my talk here, I'm doing my very first YouTube video. And which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Because is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Oh, Jupiter's conjunct Spica, or so I believe I should go out and make an astrology video. Well, there's definitely an element to that. It's also the first day in 2 months when I've been considering doing these videos for almost 2 months now. It's the first day I actually got out and did it, which is saying something because I haven't really felt like the time had come yet. But today, all of a sudden, things felt free and clear. Here I am. Here we are. And part of it is certainly intentional. It's recognizing those celestial omens and recognizing that if I begin this today, I hope that it begins under auspicious astrology. The point is for you to do that for yourself. You know, what can you set in motion? It can be a little seed that you plant. Maybe it doesn't have to be the big thing. Maybe you take a small step towards something that you want to do. Maybe you just make a little connection to allow something to start to happen. Something else that came to me is, you know, what kind of conversations could you have today? Because there is this lighter, finer vibration happening. Maybe there's some important conversations. You'd like them to happen under, you know, auspicious timing. It could be business, it could be friends, family, whatever. I don't know. Who do you need to pick up the phone and call? I think it's a really great time to practice gratitude. A great time to tune into your spiritual practices. Because if the vibrations are a little lighter, finer, higher right now, which I believe is the case, as a general rule, then maybe you can create a little shift. And maybe that shift is like that little butterfly effect that leads to all sorts of beautiful things. So that's what I really wanted to say today. I hope you guys can find some awesome things to do with this timing. And I would say this week is still a good time for it. Arguably next week too. Jupiter's not so far from Spica next week either. So look at the next week or two and do some things that you want to have beginning under these auspicious sort of influences. Now, I should say something kind of obvious here, which is that there are 7.5 billion of us on this earth. People, anyway. And we're not all going to be having a good day or a good week. That goes without saying. This is general stuff. So there certainly are always exceptions to these things. Nonetheless, I think there's something significant to what we're talking about. And if you can tap into it, great. So another really cool thing that's happening, Jupiter has left Virgo and has gone into Libra in Vedic astrology. This video is going a bit long, so I'll talk about that soon, maybe tomorrow. And that's another really neat thing that I hope you'll tune into, because I think it, in general, is another positive shift happening in our lives. And I hope to make you more aware of that so that you can take advantage of it and open up to the opportunity of that. So, thank you. Thank you for checking this out. I have, a vision of sharing the stuff that I'm able to see for myself. I'm able to see these things all the time because this is what I do, right? And most people don't. Most people have other jobs. So if I can share some of what I know and help you guys get more in tune and in the flow with your timing in your life, which I've been able to do in my life, it's helped me tremendously. well, that seems like a really smart thing to do to help share the love. So that's what I'm all about here. And I'll be vulnerable and say, you guys can definitely help me to help you. There's little things on YouTube like subscribing and liking the videos and commenting on the videos. Partly that helps me to get visible, and partly that tells me there's someone out there listening, and just that little bit of like, someone rooting for you goes a long way. So that will definitely help me to continue to make things like this, even on those days where I would rather just not. So yeah, thank you for, whatever. Hey, you're watching. That's really the important thing. And really the important thing is to use this to benefit yourself. Like, how can you take the timing that we have right now and receive some blessing in your life and try to bless someone else, offer something that's going to uplift someone else too. So the sky's the limit, and use your own creativity here and figure out how you can take advantage of a kind of celestial upturn, because there's been a lot of intense astrology we had in August. I feel like gradually a lot of things have been improving since then. And I feel like this is one of the real kind of crowning moments of that potential. So it's a great week to set some new things in motion. I hope you'll do that. And I guess you can check out other stuff I'm doing. I've got, links to my social media and websites and Facebook and YouTube and all that, and Twitter. Should be there in the comments. And anyway, thank you so much. And I'll sign off and say, may all beings be happy and free. Have a great day.